But the situation became even more intense in the hours that followed. Because as analysts continued studying the strike on the massive Udeid Air Base, a deeper question started circulating among military experts. How did Iran choose this target? This base is not just another installation. It is the beating heart of U.S. air operations across the Middle East. Located just outside Doha, the base houses advanced command centers that coordinate missions across multiple countries. Surveillance aircraft, fighter jets, and refueling tankers move through this hub every single day. That's why the choice of target immediately raised eyebrows across defense communities. According to several analysts, hitting such a strategic location sends a message far beyond the physical damage itself. It signals capability, and it signals intent. Iranian officials made that message clear in statements broadcast on state media. Leaders in Tehran described the strike as a demonstration of what they called deterrent power. They argued that the operation showed Iran could reach deep into the network of American military infrastructure spread across the Gulf. But this is where the story takes another unexpected turn. Because while Iran celebrated the strike as a military achievement, U.S. officials continued to present a completely different picture. Defense officials in Washington, D.C. emphasized that missile defense systems had intercepted several incoming projectiles. According to their assessment, the base remained fully operational. Aircraft were still flying. Command centers were still functioning. And the regional military posture of the United States had not been significantly weakened. Two narratives, two very different interpretations of the same event. And somewhere in the middle, the truth the world is trying to uncover. But that wasn't even the most concerning part. Because military planners began looking beyond the immediate strike. They started asking a much larger question. What happens next? History shows that moments like this can quickly trigger cycles of retaliation. One strike leads to another. Signals become stronger. Messages become louder. And tensions move closer to open confrontation. That possibility is exactly why governments across the Gulf region immediately increase their alert levels. Countries such as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates began monitoring the situation closely. These nations host critical infrastructure: energy facilities, shipping lanes, military installations. Any escalation could put those assets directly in the line of danger. And the implications don't stop there. The Gulf region sits at the center of global energy markets. Roughly a third of the world's oil shipments pass through nearby waterways. If tensions spiral out of control, the impact could reach far beyond the Middle East. Energy prices could spike. Financial markets could react. Global supply chains could feel the shock. That's why international leaders are already calling for restraint. Diplomatic channels behind the scenes are likely working overtime to prevent further escalation. But even with diplomacy in motion, the psychological impact of the strike is already reshaping the conversation. Because the attack raises a difficult reality for military planners. Modern missile technology has changed the battlefield. Countries like Iran have invested heavily in long-range precision missiles precisely because they allow smaller forces to threaten powerful military installations from afar. This means traditional bases, no matter how fortified, can no longer assume complete security. The strike on Udeid highlights this new reality. A reality where missiles traveling hundreds of miles can reach critical targets in minutes. And that realization is forcing strategists to rethink defense systems across the region. But just when the story seemed to settle into a predictable geopolitical standoff, another detail quietly began emerging. Satellite analysts and independent observers started reviewing imagery of the area surrounding the base. Their goal was simple: verify the scale of the damage. Early indications suggested something interesting. Some impact marks appeared near the outer perimeter of the installation. Debris fields were visible in certain areas. But the core infrastructure, the runways, command centers, and aircraft hangars, appeared largely intact. If these early observations hold true, it could mean both sides are partially correct. Iran may have succeeded in launching missiles that reached the base, but U.S. defensive systems may have prevented catastrophic damage. That possibility would explain the dramatic difference between the two narratives. And it also reveals something even more important. This confrontation may be less about destruction, and more about messaging. Strategic messaging. Iran wants to demonstrate that American bases are within reach. The United States wants to demonstrate that those bases remain protected. Both sides are communicating strength. Both sides are shaping perception. and the rest of the world is watching closely. Because perception often determines what happens next. If leaders believe their adversary is weak, they may take bolder actions. If they believe their opponent is strong, they may choose caution. That delicate balance is what keeps geopolitical crises from spiraling into full-scale war. Right now, the strike on Udeid Air Base sits at the center of that balance. It represents a dramatic escalation, but it has not yet crossed the line into open war. What happens next could determine whether the situation stabilizes or becomes something far more dangerous. For now, military forces remain on alert across the region. Diplomats continue working behind closed doors, and analysts are still piecing together exactly what happened during the strike that shook the Middle East. Because sometimes the most important moments in global politics are not the explosions themselves. They are the decisions that come afterward. Decisions made in command centers. Decisions made in presidential offices. Decisions that can determine whether a crisis fades or becomes something much bigger. And right now, the entire world is watching closely to see which path this moment will take.
But just when analysts thought the situation around Al Udeid Air Base had stabilized, something even more concerning began to emerge. Behind closed doors, military planners were asking a question that had very little to do with the damage itself. The real concern was how quickly the strike happened, because according to early reports, the missiles were launched and detected within a very short window of time. That means decision-makers inside command centers had only minutes to react, minutes to track the missiles, minutes to activate interception systems, and minutes to determine whether the strike was the beginning of something much larger. This is where modern warfare becomes extremely dangerous. Missile technology has dramatically reduced reaction time. In past conflicts, military forces could see threats building over hours or even days. But today, long-range missiles can travel hundreds of miles in just minutes, and that reality changes everything. Countries must now make critical decisions faster than ever before, and when decisions are made quickly, the risk of miscalculation increases. That's exactly why the strike has triggered urgent discussions among defense experts across the world. Because if a similar attack targeted multiple bases at the same time, the situation could escalate rapidly. The Gulf region contains several major American military facilities. Bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and United Arab Emirates all play important roles in the broader U.S. defense network. Each one supports different types of operations: naval forces, air operations, logistics and intelligence coordination, and all of them exist within range of regional missile systems. That reality is why this strike has captured the attention of strategists far beyond the Middle East. Defense analysts in the United States and across Europe are already studying what happened during the attack. They want to understand how missile defenses performed, how early warning systems reacted, and whether new vulnerabilities were exposed. Because incidents like this become case studies for future military planning. But the military dimension is only part of the story. There is also a powerful political dimension unfolding at the same time. Leaders in Iran framed the strike as a response to what they describe as ongoing pressure from the United States and its regional allies. From their perspective, demonstrating missile capability sends a warning that Iran can retaliate if tensions continue rising. But from the perspective of Washington, the strike raises a completely different concern. Allowing attacks on major bases to go unanswered could signal weakness, and weakness in international politics can encourage further aggression. This is the delicate balance global leaders now face. Respond too aggressively, and the situation could spiral into open conflict. Respond too cautiously, and deterrence could weaken. It is a geopolitical chess game where every move carries enormous consequences. And that's why diplomatic channels are now working overtime. Officials from several major powers have reportedly begun urgent consultations. Their goal is simple: prevent the situation from escalating beyond control. But here's the twist that many viewers may not realize. While the headlines focus on explosions and missile launches, some of the most important developments are happening quietly behind the scenes. Private conversations, back-channel diplomacy, messages delivered through intermediaries. These communications are designed to send signals without creating public escalation. Sometimes they succeed in calming tensions. Other times they simply delay the next confrontation. And right now, no one knows which outcome is more likely. Meanwhile, residents across the Gulf region are watching the situation closely. Cities near key military installations have increased security, airspace monitoring has intensified, and military patrols across the region have quietly expanded. Because even if the strike caused limited damage, the psychological impact is enormous. It reminds everyone in the region that strategic military sites can become targets within moments, And that reality changes how governments think about security. But perhaps the most important question still remains unanswered. Was this a single demonstration strike, or the first signal of a larger confrontation? Some analysts believe Iran may have intended the attack as a calculated message rather than the beginning of sustained conflict, a way of demonstrating capability while avoiding full-scale war. Others warn that once missile strikes begin, controlling escalation becomes extremely difficult. History shows that conflicts often grow from small incidents that leaders initially believed could be contained. And that is exactly why the world is watching this situation so closely, because the strike on Al Udeid Air Base may end up being remembered in one of two ways, either as a brief flash of tension that diplomacy successfully contained, or as the moment when a much larger geopolitical confrontation quietly began. Right now, military forces remain on alert, diplomats remain in constant communication, and intelligence agencies continue analyzing every piece of data from the strike. Satellite imagery, radar tracking, missile trajectories, all of it is being studied to understand exactly what happened, because in modern geopolitics, information is just as powerful as weapons. The more clearly leaders understand the situation, the better chance they have of preventing miscalculation. But until that picture becomes clearer, uncertainty will continue to dominate the global conversation. And uncertainty is exactly what makes moments like this so dangerous. Because when the stakes involve major military powers and strategic installations, even a single decision can change the course of events. For now, the story continues to unfold. New details are emerging, new analyses are being released, and governments across the world are preparing for whatever comes next. Because the strike that shook one of the largest American bases in the Middle East may not just be another headline, it may be the opening chapter of a geopolitical crisis that is only beginning to develop.